Hey everybody, it's Josh Alexander from The Brokerage, your host of Orange County Housing Market News, your one-stop shop for all things Orange County real estate. So I go over different trends happening in the market, I interview other local experts in the field, and then especially if you're a buyer or seller, I go over different tricks and tips to help you succeed in today's market. So if that sounds like you, make sure you hit that subscribe and like button below, and if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that bell button as well. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing one of the biggest topics that's come up in the last week in real estate, and that is Zillow has stopped buying homes for the rest of the year. There's been a lot of articles out there saying, did they stop purchasing because they know that we're in a housing bubble and it's about to crash? Well, that's what I want to go over today and dissect that with you. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I wanted to start today by reading a quote from the Chief Operating Officer at Zillow when responding to why they stopped their iBuying program. He said, "We're operating within a labor and supply constrained economy inside a competitive real estate market, especially in the construction, renovation, and closing spaces." So what he's basically saying here is that they don't have enough labor to be able to get the work done. They don't have enough supplies to be able to get in to get the work done. And it's just basically causing a giant backlog when they're trying to purchase these homes, flip these homes, and then get them back on the market. So do I believe that's the big reason why they stopped purchasing homes right now? Well, I definitely believe it's a big part of it, maybe not the whole thing, but I do believe it's a big part of it. And the reason why is because if you've been a homeowner over the last 18 months and have tried to get anything done in your house whatsoever, get a contractor in, get bids, and get work started, you probably already know this, but it's extremely hard to get those contractors in. And not only is it hard to get them in, it's hard to get them to commit to a time frame of when they can get the work done. Often the good contractors are booked out right now months in advance, and they're charging a lot more than they usually do. So it makes sense for me from seeing this at firsthand all the time that there is definitely a labor shortage in the market right now. And also on the supply side, we've seen lumber prices soaring. We've seen lumber prices go back down after the summer highs, but they're starting to climb back up again. So we know there's definitely a much bigger cost to be able to do renovations over the last year and a half as well. So that makes sense to me. And if you look at the data side of things as well, prior to the pandemic, we're still about 200,000 jobs short of where we were in the construction industry. So you can see not only from firsthand experience, but also the data showing there's definitely some issues here. So I do think that makes sense. However, I do believe there are two additional reasons that Zillow did stop their iBuying program as well. So the first one is they are scaling really quickly. So just to give you some quick numbers, in quarter two of this year, they basically purchased about 3,800 homes altogether. When you look at that compared to all of 2020, where they only purchased about 4,200 homes, you can see how many more homes they've been purchasing over the last year compared to what they were doing before. And if you look at quarter three, before they stopped purchasing homes for the remainder of the year, they already purchased more than 4,000 homes for this quarter. So they were scaling up very quickly. And when you're scaling a multi-million-dollar type of industry like that, there's bound to be some growing pains. So when you scale that fast, often you're not really prepared for all the different logistical challenges that come with that. And I think that's another reason that Zillow had to stop doing this, is because they just didn't have the structures in place to be able to make sure they can start making profits on these. Now, speaking of profits, the other main reason I do think they stopped purchasing properties is because when you actually dive deeper into their finances, you can see there's some issues going on there. So let's look at Zillow's quarter two results. So in quarter two, they pulled in right around $1.3 billion in revenue. And out of that $1.3 billion, about 60% of it, or $772 million, came from their iBuying program. So you can see that this iBuying program is not a tiny little sliver of their business. It actually makes up more than 50% of their total revenue right now. So investors are really starting to scrutinize what's happening inside this iBuying program to make sure that they're trying to produce profits. So speaking of profits, the way Zillow made that $772 million was from the sale of a little less than 2,100 homes. So when you start digging into it even deeper, they show that they actually lost $59 million in their iBuying program when everything was said and done. So if you look at that $59 million, and it's a little bit less than 2,100 homes they sold, it actually comes out to Zillow losing about $28,200 per home on average that they sold over that quarter in this program. So you can see this is not great results. It is a very large multi-billion-dollar company, so they can have some losses when they're starting these programs up. They've been doing it since 2019, but eventually investors are going to want to start seeing some actual positive cash flow coming from this iBuying program, especially when it makes up so much of their overall revenue. So investors will probably cut them some slack for a little while longer, but eventually they're going to have to figure this out and start actually making profit on these deals, or they're going to be in real trouble because their revenue can drop very significantly if they had to permanently take away this iBuying program. So the question then becomes, why are they losing so much money on all these deals? Well, there's probably 100 different reasons, but some of the easy ones to point out is right now, especially in the last 18 months, we're in an extremely hot seller's market. So before, maybe in 2019, were they able to go in and find a property, place an all-cash offer under market value, and the seller would accept it because they didn't want to deal with all the hassle of going through buying a home with a loan. They have to now compete with 20 offers per home, which has been driving prices up, which means they need to be paying over market value, even if they're paying all cash, to be able to stay competitive with all these other offers coming in. So they're buying these homes above market value to begin with, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons they're starting to lose more money on the homes right now, is because they have to pay more for them. And then on top of that, because supplies are becoming more expensive, because labor is becoming more expensive, because it's hard to find right now, their costs are going up on that side of the equation as well. So all of these things are coming together, making it extremely difficult for anybody flipping homes, but especially if you buy the home over market value, it's almost impossible to be able to make a profit on it right now. Okay, so just to quickly summarize, Zillow has pulled out of the market because labor shortages, because of supply shortages. I believe they've also pulled out because they were scaling too fast and didn't have the infrastructure in place to be able to deal with that, as well as their financials aren't looking great right now, so they kind of wanted to pull back and maybe take a reset on that as well. But you'll notice that I haven't yet mentioned anything at all about Zillow pulling out because of a housing crash coming. So you may be seeing a bunch of things in the news right now. Appreciation is slowing down, demand is slowing down, interest rates are going up. The foreclosure moratorium just ended, so where's the flood of inventory about to hit the market? So there's a lot of negative information right now circling about the real estate industry and a lot of these clickbait headlines. And Zillow, being such a very large company, having access to so much data, it would make sense that if something was about to happen in the market, they would know about it because of the amount of data they have, and they'd be pulling out of the market because of that. Well, let's go over some of these points really fast about the fundamentals of the housing market right now, and then we'll kind of move on from there. So right now, yes, appreciation is going down. Yes, demand is going down. However, this year we've gotten back to almost a typical housing cycle where we had inventory spike, demand spike during the summertime, and now we're starting to see inventory trickle. We're starting to see demand trickle back down during the fall time before it will start to dip off after Thanksgiving. So that's completely normal for this time of year. This time of year, typically you see appreciation slow down because demand slows down, not many people placing multiple offers on homes, which means prices aren't getting driven up as quickly. So when you see those headlines about appreciation slowing down, demand slowing down, that's completely normal for this time of year, but people are making it clickbait headlines so you can read it and think an imminent housing crash is coming. And on the foreclosure side of things, I've gone over this so many times I can't count anymore, but right now, until the end of October, a very big percentage of people that were in the forbearance program have been exiting the forbearance program. And the data is overwhelmingly showing that when they do exit the forbearance program, the large majority of them are coming out either back on time with their payments, have paid their house off in full, have already sold their house, or have worked out some type of loan modification where they can go and place those payments they missed on the back end of their loan and be able to pay it off that way. And so that way they're caught up on their mortgage going forward. And yes, there will be some that eventually will go through the foreclosure process because they weren't able to get their jobs back. But because inventory is so historically low right now, when those foreclosures start hitting the market early next year, you're not going to see much change whatsoever in the housing market because of that. You might see a little blip here and there, but overall, there's not enough homes that are going through the foreclosure process that are really going to impact the industry significantly. So if you look at the demand side of things, right now interest rates have been going up. 2 months ago, they were hovering right around 2.8. Today, they're hovering around 3.1. So that is decreasing demand slightly, but historically, 3.1% is still one of the lowest interest rates you've ever seen for a 30-year fixed mortgage right now. And on top of that, between now and 2024, we have the largest demographic patch in the United States entering prime home buying years. So that's the millennials. So millions and millions of millennials are getting to that age where they're starting to look for homes and purchase homes of their own. So it's really going to be hard for demand to shrink so significantly that it really impacts the market unless interest rates all of a sudden spike 4% or higher, which at this point, not many people, if anyone, are predicting that's going to happen anytime soon. Now, on the supply side of things, like I said before, right now we're still at historic lows. In Orange County, we're almost under 2,000 homes on the market at this point. Typically during this time of year, we have almost 6,000 homes. So you can see there's a giant supply shortage, and it's looking like by the beginning of next year, we are most likely going to be starting next year with the lowest amount of inventory in the housing market ever recorded. So needless to say, supply is so low right now, demand is so high that there's not going to be anything that's going to fundamentally be able to change that overnight in the housing market anytime in the foreseeable future. Appreciation is slowing down, which is needed because we've been way too hot over the last 18 months, and demand is starting to drop. But again, that's because we're entering the fall and winter months, and that's what you see during the fall and winter months. And as a big company like Zillow knows this, they have the data, they understand that this time of year appreciation slows down, you're going to have that demand slow down, and that's completely normal to see. So Zillow understands this, so they're not seeing these headlines and freaking out because of it, because they have the data to back it up. Now, let's say you want to throw all that data out the window. So is there anything else that shows that Zillow is not pulling the plug on their iBuying program right now because they think a housing market crash is coming? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there's another giant indicator that has nothing to do with the real estate data that really shows that Zillow is kind of an outlier in terms of why they stopped their iBuying program. So if you look at the other iBuying programs, the big ones like Redfin, Opendoor, they've not only continued to purchase homes, but they're ramping it up, and they've already announced ever since Zillow said they're stopping, they're basically gloating at this point saying, we're buying more houses next year, we've already planned to expand to more areas. So all these other iBuying programs are currently expanding and going strong. So if Zillow is the only iBuying program that has stopped, Redfin, Opendoor, they have a lot of the same data Zillow has about the housing market. So if they saw something happening, they would probably also be slowing down as well. So that's something to look at in the future. If all of a sudden all iBuying programs slow down or stop, that could be a more realistic indication that there might be a housing crash coming, because if everyone stops, then they're probably seeing something in the market that's putting a pause on them wanting to purchase any more properties in the future because it's too uncertain. So in my opinion, the biggest reason that Zillow did this is, yes, they do have a labor and they do have a supply problem. However, right now, their iBuying program is not profitable. So I think they pulled the plug on it right now because, like I said before, appreciation is slowing down, demand is slowing down right now, which means it's harder and harder for these home flippers to make money during the season. So they probably also realize it's an optimal time to put a pause on their system, look at the algorithms and all the other data that they use to figure out which house to buy in which city and which neighborhood, and figure out what's going wrong and figure out how they can better take those algorithms, how they can better take that data and purchase someplace that's going to get more profitability, and so they can actually start getting out of the red and into the black with these iBuying program. So I think that's another major reason they stop right now, because it's a perfect time to stop, because right now over the next couple months you're not seeing that appreciation, you're not seeing that demand, so it's a good time to kind of take a step back, look at your overall program, do the tweaks you need, and then come back stronger in 2022. So we'll see what happens, but that's my personal belief is another big reason why they stopped, because it's just a good time for them to do so and reflect on what's going on. So I hope you found that information useful. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next show. Bye.